This video will go through the use case of incident response when working in EclecticIQ's Intelligence Center version 3.5. My goal with this video is to show you how we collect and triage intelligence related to incidents, whether it's an alert that's come from your own infrastructure, something you've created that you'd like to know more about, and how to visualize, store, and manage, and eventually process that data all within the platform. Starting here with this dashboard view, I've created a dedicated dashboard just for incident response data. One of the capabilities in the platform is the ability to create multiple dashboards with a widget-based system. You can therefore create these for specific use cases. Here I've got one just helping me understand my key metrics around intelligence related to incidents, which are known as sightings in the STIX data model. We can see some simple totals to help us understand our overall process with the workflow. We can see a measure of activity in terms of alerts over the last year. Hopefully this is a relatively flat line for most organizations. And we can see to start breaking down some of the metadata using things like pie charts or even just list views to access some of those entities. This is an interactive tool where we can customize and manage the visualizations. We can also drill down to specific subsets of this data, which takes us into the search capability of the platform. This makes it easy for us to respond to new data in a visual way, visualize trends, and access information interactively. Now for incident response, rather than responding to alerts through the search, it's more typical to create a triage workflow for this information. For this, we would use discovery, which you can think of as an alerting capability. I have multiple rules in this view, so we can actually select from various different rules I've created for things like intelligence requirements, key threats like actors or malwares, or in this case, we're focused on alerts that have come in from the SOC team. In this view, we can see a couple of entities that haven't been processed yet. We can open up these entities and from the entity card view, get an idea about the threat that we're dealing with. In this case, we have some suspicious DNS activity that's been reported by Azure Analytics. We've therefore got an alert that's come into the platform together with some observables that we might want to investigate further. The platform will do some initial pivoting and access of these values, allowing us to understand whether this relates to any existing intel from other sources and to access intel from intelligence sources such as lookup services like VirusTotal, Shodan, and others. Here we can see that we have a report entity related through the domains, and the report discusses a campaign related to this domain. There's information such as key details, MITRE ATT&CK details, available for us to learn more about this threat. This indicates that this is indeed malicious, and we can use this report to understand how. We also have the results of a VirusTotal lookup, which is providing us with the lookup details from VirusTotal's API. This returns additional information such as IP resolutions, related certificates and files, lots of different places where we can potentially pivot and find more intelligence. Working here in the graph allows us to do this visually. Here I can expand all of that extracted information from the VirusTotal enrichment, and we can see lots of additional pivot points for me to work through. Now at this point, I want to make a decision about whether this is a malicious incident. I need to report back to either my ticketing process or my alert process within my organization. I need to decide if there's something malicious here that action is required for. If I already have the answers available with the entities that we can see here, I can start to think about creating a report or providing a resolution in my ticketing system if that's part of my workflow. I could also use tools within the platform to enrich these values further. For example, I might want to learn more about these domains from other services such as VirusTotal, PassiveTotal, Shodan, or any other lookup services that your organization works with. We can either do this interactively, as we're doing here, or we can do this automatically with enrichment rules, which is why we already have this VirusTotal entity available, since there was an enrichment rule to take this action for me automatically. Now, when it comes to reporting, I can now think about creating a report of my own, sharing that within my organization. I could also simply add notes to the different entities that are part of this investigation. For example, on the sighting itself, I can add a note so that this is discoverable by other analysts. This very much depends on how your organization wants to record and track effort related to these incidents. I can also open up the Create menu and contribute data of my own to the database. So in this case, I could create a new report object, provide all of the key information, and I can then link this directly to the alert that we've been exploring with a relationship. This allows us to create any content that we need to help illustrate or report on a threat and link it directly to raw intelligence, rather than having silos of finished and raw intelligence separate. One other option we have is to simply select all of the entities that we've identified as part of this investigation. I can then choose to generate a report automatically, which gives me access to an LLM-based tool where I can then provide a prompt and instruct this on building the initial report for me. This is an excellent way for us to initially create a report, save us time with boilerplate, and since we support your own LLMs and private models, this can also be done securely within your own organization. In this case, I can either select an AI title or I can give it my own title. For this, we'll call this a SOC alert for today's date. And I can then choose between a couple of already prepared templates, or I can choose custom template, which gives me access to the complete prompt, which I can then make changes to myself. In this case, we'll remove the default and we'll just ask for something very simple for now. And I'll also simplify the template here. We just want a simple summary instead of anything else. This process will generate a new report for me within the platform. It will then link that newly created report directly to the intel that we've selected. This is also something we can do from the search view. In this case, if I go to my alert now, I can load up one of its newly related entities and we'll find a new report has been created. This is linked to all of the objects in question. So we have a new entity nicely linked to our raw intelligence. We can open this up and just see what it's given us for now. In this case, it's a pretty short summary. That's all I asked for in my prompt. I can, of course, expand that to ask for additional information, but I can also open up this entity and I can make changes of my own. So if I want to include some additional details at this point, I can do so manually before then sharing this report with my organization. At this point, we typically share this with the appropriate audiences. This is either possible manually from the export menu or automatically through workflows that we can already have configured. Typically, this is done through export feeds, and for these, we would add this to the appropriate collection, and that feed would export it depending on the schedule that we've set. I can then choose from this list. Let's look for some of the exports I already have. We can see I have one for management, for example. I also have some created to help me store and organize this information, and we can also tie these to our outgoing feeds as well. So in this case, I'll store this in my SOC reports collection, and I have a feed already configured which will take these every hour and export them to the appropriate audience. This allows me to respond, investigate, create, and manage threats all within a single platform. I don't have to open additional browser tabs to use intelligence tools or lookup services. Potentially, I have to copy some of this information to a ticketing system, but this behavior is also something that can be made available through the Add menu, allowing you to add key information as additional commentary to ServiceNow and Jira tickets as well. Hopefully this was a brief and useful look at the incident response process within the EclecticIQ platform. If you'd like to know more, please reach out to us at any time and we'd be happy to give you a deeper dive and a chance to test out the software. Thank you.